Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's Lavender Sky Panther with you on Saturday, January 20th, 2024, for a little card reading today. It is going to be mainly earth intensive to kind of balance out all the water energies we had in the previous readings of Atlantis, Lemuria, and the Pacific Islands, the lore of them. So, anyway, I was feeling strong earth vibes, and that led me to pull out and kind of base the reading on this photo that I took of Stonehenge standing somewhere in there over 20 years ago. In the foreground is an actual piece of the Presley Bluestone, which is located, the origins of the Presley Bluestone is apparently only in Wales in the entire world from what I gather. So it is very unique, very special. And that comprises of the inner circle of what they call inner circle of smaller standing stones, bluestone, and the outer ones, these taller stones, are sarsen, which are primarily made up of quartz. So right away, I invite you to look up the exact properties of Presley Bluestone from the Presley Mountains or Hills, and also of sarsen, and look at their properties, including healing properties, sound properties, all kinds of things. As I've mentioned probably before on this channel, we look at quartz. Quartz has many properties, and particularly it can regulate frequencies. Look at any quartz, when it was referred to as quartz movement, quartz watches, they were really big in the 80s. Look up why an actual piece of quartz is put in those watches. Other high-end or fancier, I guess more expensive, quote-unquote, watches might have an actual other type of gemstone, I think like ruby or something else. Again, each stone holds a particular frequency, and you might be fascinated to see how that really works in the application of a watch. Just an idea there. All right, so let's zoom out. When I knew, okay, we're dealing with Earth, we're dealing with a standing stone circle, in this case Stonehenge. Of course, there's so many meanings, interpretations of what Stonehenge actually was or is. Also, whether it was a moon calendar, a solar calendar, even a marker for galactics to see from elsewhere to mark that specific area. There are lots of different things that it could have been, and maybe has been over time, has had many multiple uses. It's never just all or nothing, one thing or the other. And so anyway, that's one thing too. A little message coming through that it's, we are so polarized and set in a duality in this 3D world, and we got to kind of break out of that. Look at things from a different perspective. It's not just A or B, red or blue, black or white. No. When you're looking at the world as, kind of from a more 5D and up point of view, it's really, it's everything, Of course, there's those elements within the all that there is, but we never just have to choose one or the other, Now, also as a perspective in dealing with it, Stonehenge was more or less round in shape, the overall plan of it, footprint of it. It's also another reminder, and especially when kind of talking about was it used by galactic beings or, in reference to them or relating them somehow, and looking at point of view, we always look at, when we even are taught or what do we want to say, indoctrinated as kids, to look at the planets and rattle off the names of all of them, right? We start with Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and so on. Well, that's starting from a quote-unquote center and moving out, to look at them. Well, there's also something to be said from a different perspective. What if you were a galactic being coming to the Earth from somewhere from the outside and not popping up in a portal somewhere on the inside? Let's just say you were coming more in a linear distance from the outside, then you would start naming the planets, right, in a different order. Anyway, I know we're getting to a lot of, I might just kind of really wander all over the place here. And the intent here is just to kind of maybe literally just rattle off some ideas. They might be fragments of ideas that might lead at you or prompt you to be inspired in a certain way to go look up things on your own or search them out in your inner soul in meditation on your own. When I say pop up in a portal somewhere, along the way in the linear line of planets, so to speak, it just reminds me of the trilithon, is this basic construct where we got the two standing stones with the lintel on the top. There's also the notion of, are these each a portal, or is the space in between a portal, or these two stones down here a portal? Um, you know, there's, I think, a lot of evidence to suggest now, of course, portals are a real phenomenon and function. It can be on a local level in your own backyard or on a galactic level, and beyond. So anyway, this just is saying keep your mind wide open, even to the idea of portals, and look at your point of view. Are you standing within the circle? Like, are you the nucleus of a cell, or are you on the outside looking in? Or in here we have the actually I'll show you. It's going to be one of those little cross spreads again, where it's past energies on the left, middle is current, and on the right is future, and then the underlying energies, and then this is the overarching. So the overarching happened to be, coincidentally in quotes, the circle number 8. And so, are you standing in the middle here, looking out? Are you that drop that generates the ripple in the pond, right? Or are you somehow on the outside, looking in, just receiving this energy and kept on the outside? Well, depending on your point of view, are you the creator of what goes on around you? Do you have any control over your life and everything starts and begins with you in the middle? Or are you standing on the outside feeling like all the external is just happening to you and you have no control? So this card is just prompting you to ask yourself, are you standing on the inside or are you keeping yourself on the outside? Because that's an inside job. Only you can do that. What position is your point of view? And if you feel like you're standing out here where you feel like everything is happening to you and you have no choice, why not flip your mindset and your point of view, which only you can do, and you can do it in as quick as a heartbeat or a blink of an eye. Put yourself back in the center of this, saying, no, everything starts and begins and ends with me, and I'm sending out my creations. I'm imagining what's going on in the world. I'm not letting other people imagine it for me. I'm going to step in and stand in like these standing stones, solid in my own power. And there are moments where we might get lost, so to speak, and might feel like we're on the outside, where all the 3D external things are just happening to me. Oh my gosh, it happened to me again. But then, very quickly realize you have the choice, you have the free will to get out of the outside and step in and own it in the inside. And that power may be strong or it may be gentle. And doesn't matter. The power of the circle is powerful indeed. Look up, you might want to look into quotes by Chief Black Elk, one of the Lakota, one of the Lakota tribes. And he talked about, the power of the world moving in circles, like birds building a nest in a circle. Teepees kind of formed like the egg's nest in a circle or round, and then all of the teepees are set round in a circle, right? Even dogs, they kind of go round and around before they bed down. Why is that, right? So there's an inherent nature, there's a power in this circle. Even looking at stars, looking at so many things, in the shape of a circle. And like I mentioned earlier, like a nucleus and like a cell, everything starts, kind of begins and ends in a circle, and there is no time. It's timeless when we look at a circle. These little hands could be on this card looked at as like marking specific points along that circle. Well, if I jump in on this circle and touch this hand, does that mean I'm at the beginning of it or the end of it? We can't tell. It could as easily be this one or this one or this one. Just wherever you come in on it, is where you are at in the right now. So it's not about linear time. That at least where I'm at in quote unquote Western world in the USA, we're taught, oh no, it's linear. You start here, you finish here. No, not so. We're on a circle, and it's timeless when you're in that world and that sphere, right? Anyway, let's look over here. I pulled a book on Stonehenge as well, and this little chapter is called Surveying the Circle, and they're just showing how over time, I think mostly after the 1600s, different people came in to analyze and kind of survey, in other words, go walk it and measure out and form a diagram or a plan of what they thought Stonehenge was. Now, remember, they're not surveying from above the ground in planes or anything. They're walking the ground. They don't have like radar equipment now. They have like underground penetrating radar to find things. They didn't have that. They didn't have satellites, to assist them in the view. So this is just people going and walking the ground. Now, some took some license and just took it further and kind of recorded what they thought should be there. Wasn't even what was actually there. And some had conjecture like the top left and turned it into something like that. And that's not really, at least in present condition, what we can surmise it looks like. to me, and I'll just show you, these are some of, look at all the different variations of what people thought that Stonehenge really was in the ground, how it was really laid out and planned. So as many different as there are people, you can obviously manipulate and shape this to the way you want to believe to see it. So some wanted to see it more as rigid geometry. Others, looks like, might have more faithfully accounted what it looked like, where we have like, nothing is, oops, sorry, it's coming in and out on me. Give me a minute. Okay, there we go. Some even paid attention, like on the left, I think they're just saying, oh, it must be a circle, so I'm going to fill it out and continue it as a circle without really looking at what was on the ground. This person, it shows, has a subtlety of a deviation here, probably was really looking at what was on the ground. By the same token, they're thinking, oh, it just must be like a perfect shape like a U. Well, if you notice, this is bent in a little bit more like a horseshoe, right? So right away, I tend to favor more or less, this kind of a point of view over these. But at the same time, it looks too regular as to, what might have really been there. So are we looking at a faithful representation of what's really there? Are we kind of idealizing the situation and trying to make it into a perfect geometry, right? So we see other different views of what people did. And look at some of these look a little more like a faithful representation, because everything isn't so cookie cutter and regularized. There's some like natural ways where some things might be a little thickened and edges and thinner in others, right? Whereas these just are trying to make it more quote unquote perfect and not really regarding what's actually there in front of them, right? So anyway, out of all of this, I will just say that I lean toward, when you even just look at these two, which I don't think either is an exact faithful representation of what's there, but I lean toward this as being more correct, that it's more of a kind of a horseshoe shape, just looking at acoustics, because I do feel that acoustics were involved with the original Stonehenge, we'll just say. I do believe that there are sound and frequency properties, within each of the stones, as I opened up this discussion with, or this reading with. And as such, in order to kind of work with acoustics, it would be more in that shape, where that's kind of just letting all sound just bleed out and doesn't have a real purpose or structure or an engineered, sense to it. I do believe this Stonehenge absolutely is an engineered structure. Whoever built it or built it over time absolutely knew what they were doing and would have been mindful of such things as the acoustics and the properties of the frequencies, whether it was audible sound coming out of them or just energetic frequencies, or both, right? Energetic of different types, or both, and so much more than even what I'm touching on. Okay, so how does that apply to anything here in this reading? Has everything to do with it. So we talked about, are you on the inside or are you on the outside? Back to my original photo here, I made a conscious effort to go back and try and be sure to get in on a tour that would allow us to walk more or less freely among the inner sanctum of all of these stones, versus, and probably a decade even ahead of that, I was there standing on the outside, far, far away. There was a large rope around it. I should have pulled that picture, but I was looking at it at a very different point of view. It seemed, less of a relationship with it. It was just seen as an object off in the distance, because there was a rope set wide around this thing. You couldn't really get close at all. And so it looked very different from that point of view. And I told myself, I was a teenager, I just said, okay, one day I'm going to go back and I'm going to walk in and amongst the stones. Now, amongst all of this, I touched on it probably way back in an earlier show, a sky-related show, but, I was really, even before I, quote-unquote, had my, quote-unquote, Great Awakening back in 2010, I was here. And I wished I had been here after the fact. But of course, with or without an awakening, you still always have a heightened spiritual sensitivity. You just weren't consciously aware of it. So, of course, I was, without realizing it fully, I was feeling it out, what it felt like in this inside, quote unquote, Stonehenge. And I will say, the early 20s, 2000, sorry, not 20s, early 200, what do we want to say, 2000s, I was kind of dismayed and disappointed, because I felt no energy coming off of these stones. It felt pretty, quote unquote, dead. And, in the 1980s, when I had been there, On the outside, I felt a big energetic presence. And back then, I would not have known what I was really feeling consciously, but I could feel powerful energy, almost electric, happening around off in the distance where you could see some mounds and, whether they back then called them burial mounds, but whatever. They're in the distance, these large mounds, you could see them. And I felt more of an energy coming off, of those rather than, looking at the stones from the outside, I was getting nothing. Now, since then, and even since the early 2000s when I was there, I have, of course, a lot of truths are surfacing and a lot we have to wade and sift through. Is it true? Is it not? Using discernment. But I will say that there's evidence to suggest that these stones were removed completely off of the site and have been replaced. And that would explain why everything felt just completely dead to me in there. And I mean, I didn't even get anything off of one stone, and I should have felt some kind of energy coming off of something, and I got nothing. Now it makes total sense when I see that the site in entirety probably was cleared at some point. And I know I don't know if it was in the 50s, if it was in like 1917. There's some evidence to suggest things were interfered with in those key mile markers of years. But I do know that, they did tunnel work underneath here. They used the guise of having to do road work with the motorway to come in and interfere with this site. And I absolutely do believe it's very possible they cleared it all of its original stones and replaced them. I would not be surprised in the least. Anyway, I have not been there on the famous time to be there. One of them, anyway, is the summer solstice, so that you can find the heel stone, I think believed to come from Helios or sun, and you can see the alignment of the sun, coming up over the stone, supposedly. So, anyway, that's just a little bit about a lot. I guess I am moving all over the place, but again, to reemphasize one of the messages coming through on the reading that we're going to get to with the cards is, looking at things. What is your point of view? What is your standpoint? Are you at that center of the circle, generating the ripples out, around you? Like you've dropped in and you're kind of creating the scene, or are you standing on the outside, looking in, feeling like something else is creating your world? The reality of the situation is you are driving your world. Things are happening for you and not to you. And to try to connect in and stand in that place. Another message is, look, we're looking at diagrams. Diagrams are very two-dimensional when you look at these and plan. This one on the card is depicted in a way that we're really invited to look at it three-dimensionally, four-dimensionally, and beyond. We have a hint of galaxies and things happening in the background and stars. And so if we just look at this in a very 2D way, okay, you see some circles. You start to expand and look 3D, this starts to be like, oh, this could be the pinnacle of a dome, coming out toward us, or a three-dimensional shield. It's not flat. And that goes on deeper into space and infinitely into the cosmos. So remember, we're trained in this 3D world to look in a very linear, flat, and 2D way. Where we're all headed, we're invited to start seeing with our inner sight, the third eye, or, we're going to be starting to physically start to see in new ways as we move into new frequencies, and perhaps also internally at that cellular core level, that kind of DNA level, things start to get activated that have been dormant, and we're going to start to see in deeper and expanded ways. It's going to be very interesting. Okay, now, like I said, I knew this was just going to go all over the place. Like these little rocks here, I might be dishing some little things out in fragments. And it's just a matter of, if you're in sync with that, you'll know what to pick up or put down, so to speak, as something that, clicks with you. And if we want to be punny, what resonates you, like with the stones, the frequencies of the quartz and other properties of many other properties that might do that in some of those stones. Okay, so originally I set up the cards that were drawn to be pick a card in 3 groups, but as I started looking at the totality, the whole thing, again, moving in a circle, the power of it all, it was clear it did not want to be read that way. It wanted to be read as, like I said, past energy, current, future, undercurrent of the whole, reading, and overarching energies, right? So when it was set up for pick a card, I'll just mention this is green opal. red jasper, and yellow jasper. And I have some other stones back in here. Um, what do I have? I'm trying to think if anything jumps out, and plus I'm trying to remember the name. Labradorite. I don't know why I just blanked on that. Labradorite, as we've talked in the past, is kind of referred to as a magical stone. It's beautiful when polished. These are all raw crystals. When they're tumbled or polished, it may look very different. There's a beautiful flash that happens. Flashes when you turn that stone. Anyway, it just seemed like it wanted to be, all of these just kind of wanted to be a part of this. Like I said, very earthy energy today. All right, so we talked about the overarching energy, the all-encompassing energy. Now we're going to look at each card. So here we go. We're going to look at, this is a crystal grid, and it is Clarity, number 36 or 9, Herkimer Diamond. Herkimer Diamond apparently comes from, I think, New York area. I don't know if it's found anywhere else in the world. That you'd have to double check for me. But it's how interesting, right? At first, I just thought, okay, yeah, crystal grid. I think it usually starts with, well, I don't know if you can do it the other way. I don't think so. But you start with, a core, the essence crystal, and then you start building out and radiating out from there, right? Now, at a first glance, I thought, oh, how apropos, because this is like looking down almost, bird's eye view, looking down at Stonehenge. Got a green field. These could be the tops of the standing stones almost, right? An abstraction of Stonehenge. And maybe these are the lintels that were, sitting on tops of here, and somebody took them down and spread them out this way. So just a fun way to look at it. But then the more I look at this card and zoom in a bit, if it'll focus, we also have some sacred geometries happening. There's circles within the circles, and it gets much more complex than, what you first think. When you're zoomed out, it looks very simplistic. Dive deeper in, and we see, more detail. It's almost like maybe creating in the interior the flower of life, or again, that speaks back to at the core of cells, or like everything needed to create cells are within that core nucleus, right? Anyway, clarity. I guess, this is a reminder that, when you can look at the center of something, a lot of people do a soft-eyed meditation, looking at the center of a rose. Maybe it is also the center of something dripping into a pool of water. And you start to look at the center of wherever the drop lands, start looking at that. These are just conventions, capitalizing on the power of the circle, to get into a good meditative state. So maybe that can bring clarity, right? Or maybe just a walk in nature and you start to notice that dripping water in a puddle or other things, will bring clarity, will start to bring that into your life. So if you're feeling stuck, the water's feeling more stagnant to you than in motion, that might be a call to get out in nature. Now you might say, well, hey, I'm not in the tropics, subtropics, or in the southern hemisphere. How am I supposed to go out in the snow? Well, does this not remind you of a snowflake? Right? Just anything in nature. Nature always provides whatever we need in the moment to contemplate, to get into some of the truths that we might need to hear. Okay? Now, the next card is Secret Garden, Sacred Space. Cultivate your space, inner beauty, self-care. Okay, so again, it's a matter of perspective, just like we started off with this photo. Are you standing on the inside looking out, or the outside looking in? Or are you not even both? As I said, it's never A or B, or pick this or that. Are you not zoomed up above looking at the whole picture, like this, if we're looking down at the circle, right? Or are you even underground, right? The phrase that everyone throws about as above, so below. What does that really mean? It depends on where's your point of view. If you're standing on the surface of the earth, is the above the quote unquote heavens and the below is inner earth? If you're in inner earth looking up, what is so above, so below? Takes on a different meaning, right? Or if you're out in space, what is above and so below, right? Anyway, big question again, just to ask you, where are you at? Where are you standing? What is your perspective? Is it healthy and whole? Or does it need to change? Do you need to get out into, in nature, get in touch with nature a bit, and ask yourself some of these questions and get in good alignment no matter what? And again, harness the power of that circle as you need it. All right, so coming back, what's your perspective? When you look at this card, we see a presumed garden gate open. What's that material? Is it made out of the quartz stone I was just talking about and carry its frequencies? Or is it wood? Or are these just like little metal rods? What's your feeling off of that? Are you in this garden and you're looking through this shimmery, I don't know what that is, kind of veil separating you from the greater cosmos and starry sky beyond? Or have you just walked in from the cosmos, opened the door, left it open, and just decided to look back over your shoulder over there, right? So, what's your point of view? Are you out there, and you just came in? Or are you in the secret garden looking into the infinite and the unknown, right? You feel very comfort in your comfort zone here with your feet on the ground, looking at all these colorful, um, flora? Or do you long for being out in the galaxis for some reason? Do you feel more comfortable out there? Just some questions. Again, where are you standing? What's your point of view? Um, this is, to me, an invitation to open that door, walk through it, kind of like a leap of faith, and know that wherever you are, we create ever expanding, ever expanding. There's no limitation. There is no door blocking your way, right? So in this case, I'll just sum it up with the way is open before you. There is no time, and if there is, you're always there in perfect timing. Any time is the right time. And the way is open before you to move forward and create some beautiful things. And okay, now we're going to move on. This is current energy. So wherever you are, whether you're out there looking over here or here looking over there, or whether you're above this whole scene just looking down on it all and seeing that it takes on yet a different reality, just kind of check in to see where you want to be. Is it where you want to be? And if not, move wherever you are, in or out or above, wherever you want on that circle to get to where you want to be for right now. Now, future energies, came inverted. The card came in reverse, and usually I flip it around. But this time, no, I think it makes sense to leave it in the reverse because the message is overcoming your fears, tiger's eye. And given this whole discussion here, once you know the power of the circle and whether to be in it, outside of it, above it, or whatever, however you want to work it, you have that power. So there is really no standing stone. There's nothing standing in your way. When you're in this circle, you can get out freely. You can get out any number of ways. You're not trapped. Now, if somebody stood there and they thought, oh, there's no way I'm going to get out of the circle. I feel a power around it's keeping me in. Well, that's within you. That's your perspective holding you there. But no, of course, you can just, freely go out if you wish. Hang on one second. Let me reset that back. All right. Okay. So anyway, so I feel like here, yes, you knowing, coming into some wisdoms and knowledge, going within and getting centered and kind of maybe meditating on things. And I don't mean sitting cross-legged and oming and having incense on. Meditating can also just be walking through the woods, walking along a beach, walking down an urban setting, just getting lost in your own thoughts and keeping you at the core, generating them all. Is a meditation, right? You can connect in any number of ways. So I feel that you do understand this and the nature of all of this that I've just talked about. And so because you do have that foundation now, those are your foundations, you are standing strong in that knowledge and wisdom. And so you have overcome your fears. Not that some might creep back in, but for the most part, you've overcome them. You've kind of transcended them. You can see past, you can see fears as the illusion that they are. These are like illusory. These could be like fears trying to creep in, but you're seeing right through them. You're seeing right past them. They're there because in this duality world, it is a world of duality where fear has crept in. But now we're at the stage of, casting all of that aside and seeing through it to the reality of a wholeness and a unity consciousness that brings us all together, right? And doesn't keep us divided anymore. Okay, now the underlying currents of this is, it says, what reminds me I'm free? And then they're showing the plant a prairie smoke. Here's what it looks like. And then the big message below is liberate. Okay, so this does all tie in together. The spirit of freedom and liberation is below. The power of the circle is above. You're free to come and go out of that circle at any time, but that it does have an important role in our overall world, right? So let's look. Yeah. So this circle seems very rigid, as do some of these. And this one is very freeing, right? It's radiating out. So two very different types of circles, but they all exist, and we can, look to them and learn from them what they each represent. Okay, so now I am going to read the card here. I'm going to read the companion book just a little bit and see if any other messages are good to hear right now on this overall theme and reading. And let's see what we get. I had actually personally never heard of prairie smoke, so I'm going to zoom in here in case you are not familiar with it either. And I just see here, density of form and feeling is part of the human experience, but we don't have to center our consciousness there. How can we feel into an alternative understanding? The ethereal floral wisps atop prairie smoke are a helpful visual for expanding your sense of self as eternally free. I'm going to skip ahead here. A prairie smoke sighting suggests something is ready to unlock. And that's interesting they phrase it that way because, as we know, Stonehenge is riddled with mystery. And again, what was it used for? Again, I suggest there's many overlaying uses and over time, of how it was used. Anyway, you might want to meditate and tap into your inner core and try to get at, if you have a lingering question of what was it used for, who did it, what's its purpose, how was it built. Anyway, I'm going to skip ahead to prairie smoke encourages you to actively shift without judgment or condemnation through the power of your own choice right in this moment. How does your body feel if you focus on a higher vibrating energy such as love, gratitude, or compassion? What beliefs naturally generate a feeling of freedom inside? Meditate on what would help you reframe. Bison or 13-lined ground squirrel may have advice too. And I did look at that in this book, and there are some nice advices in there, but we'll just stick with that from the guidebook for now. Okay, so maybe here's just once again a nice little reminder. Good question for today. What reminds me I'm free? And again, you look to nature. Is there anything constraining a bud from opening and blooming? No, usually not, right? What is restricting us from feeling free? Probably in most cases, our own thinking, which again, I think the overall message here, big one is, step in and out of that circle, look at things at many different perspectives to try to see the absolute truth of the situation for you. And remind yourself, no, you're not imprisoned when you're in this circle. There's always many ways out, not just one, many, okay? All right, I think we're going to close with that for now. And I just want to say I wish you all a beautiful right now, tremendous peace and love, and tremendous freedom in all ways. And just a nice little send off is go get out there and create. You are the beginning and the end. Everything starts and begins with you. And there is no beginning and no end at the same time, right? One of these little paradoxes. And we each are the all and the everything. We are all that there is, all that is, and that is summed up with love. All right, everyone, take care. Best wishes. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.